Hey ladies and gentlemen, how you guys doing? I'm going to do a very short review on Avengers Infinity War. This is a redone review because, if those of you don't know, I apologize for the manner in which, not the points, but the manner in which I approached that movie. Psalms 112 verse 7 and 8 says, "The righteous shall be in everlasting remembrance. He shall not be afraid of evil tidings. His heart is fixed, trusting in the Lord. His heart is established, he shall not be afraid, until he sees his desire upon his enemies." And I'm not saying that he will not be afraid until he sees it, but he will not be afraid, period, and he will see his desire upon his enemies. Alright, so let me just give you the points about Avengers Infinity War. There were some positive things in there, some generic positive things, and then some specific positive things which were pretty unique. A lot of people talk about sacrifice in Infinity War. For the most part, I thought the sacrifices that happened in Infinity War were empty and sort of empty. They were empty sacrifices, and I'll explain to you why. But one of the major flaws of this movie, and it's been so for a couple of MCU movies, is the fact that the MCU's approach now is comedy, comedy, comedy. And they really are destroying the dramatic moments by just dropping in comedy anywhere they feel like it. And what they're really trying to do with drama and comedy juxtaposed against each other is they're trying to diffuse that weight of a moment by throwing comedy after it. But what they have sacrificed, if I were to use that topic, is they sacrificed the integrity of the characters. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by using Justice League as my example. In Justice League, the Flash, he saves Wonder Woman, but he ends up falling on top of her, and then you see him wriggle up in her breast. He literally, his face is face planted in her breast, and then he kind of wriggles up on her before he stands up. And that was funny in the cinema. People laughed, but it was a cheap joke. It violated the integrity of Wonder Woman, which Zack Snyder and Patty Jenkins had strived very carefully to maintain. Joss Whedon, in one moment, destroyed that. Similarly, I find that Thor Ragnarok has been treated disgustingly and disdainfully with mockery as of Thor Ragnarok and onwards in this movie. He's been absolutely mocked to scorn. And similarly for Doctor Strange, these two characters and Loki, they have been dragged into the mud by the directors. And what do I mean by this? For cheap laughs, Thor, who has witnessed Loki's death in front of his face by Thanos, comes to meet the Guardians. He is mocked by Star-Lord. And then they take the character and give him a monologue when he's talking to Rocket. And he's mocking the death of his father, his sister. They mock everything. They mock also the fact that he just lost Loki. And then he psychoanalyzes himself in a joke. And I find that just extremely poor taste to treat the character that way. With Doctor Strange, he's cracking jokes left, right, and center. And I find that, again, very stupid and violating the character once again. Now, I noticed they didn't do that for Captain America. And they haven't done it for Black Panther and for the people surrounding Black Panther. They made sure not to mock those characters. But they've pretty much mocked everybody else. And I find that distasteful. Just as how Joss Whedon did a distasteful moment just for laughs. So I think that's the major thing that made me despise Avengers Infinity War and also despise Thor Ragnarok. I don't like either movie. Especially how they treated Ragnarok with no bit of respect whatsoever. They actually mocked that. I totally don't enjoy those kinds of movies. And it shows they have no respect for the comic book characters and their history and lore. Now, with respect to the topic of sacrifice, there is a glimmer of light in the midst of darkness, and that had to do with Thanos and Gamora. And that's a pretty unique situation in the sense that um, it actually is something that happens in the world today, where people strive to have position and power in sports or in entertainment or just wealth. And they actually will sacrifice someone close to them. They may even commit murder and kill them to attain that. And I thought that was a unique thing to Avengers Infinity War that no comic book movie had done so far. Now, interestingly, Krypton, the episode that happened tonight, shows that Darren Vex, he was willing to sacrifice his daughter to be in the favor of Brainiac's basically representative on Earth. So that was also very interesting. But Infinity was the first movie I've seen where that actually was shown. All right, and I think that's the one shining light in the midst of this mess, I call it, of a movie. However, the other sacrifices, or the so-called sacrifices that they say this movie had with Vision and with Groot and all the other people who just disappeared, Black Panther and everybody went into ashes, I thought it was not much of a payoff. I thought they were empty sacrifices, and I'll explain to you why. First of all, Vision's sacrifice, it's not really a sacrifice because he's a machine. As such, like Cyborg, he really can't die. So he really is not much of a sacrifice. And I thought it was kind of ridiculous that they actually waited so late to actually just pull the Mind Stone out of him. It wouldn't have killed him. And even if it did, they could always bring him back. But when it comes to the sacrifices of Doctor Strange and Black Panther and all the other characters that started to disappear, Spider-Man, they're empty. Why? Because, first of all, Spider-Man didn't even want to die. And then when you look at Black Panther, we know what Black Panther's philosophy was. But all of these deaths were just basically tools to pay off that Thanos gets his way. That's pretty much what they were. Other than that, they're nothing else. There's what I mean by this. So if we look at Yondu's sacrifice to save Star-Lord, there's a history or context behind that. So for instance, Yondu lost a lot of things in trying to protect Star-Lord. He lost his positioning as leader of the Raptors. He lost the Brotherhood. He was exiled out of that group of people who he belonged to because he was trying to protect Star-Lord on the D-Low. He never really associated himself directly with Star-Lord, but we learn as the movie progresses and then when his ultimate sacrifice happens that he's really trying to protect Star-Lord from Ego, and he's trying to protect Star-Lord, period. And so when he dies, it's significant. And the interesting thing is he's been rejected all along, and now everybody starts to embrace and accept him when they understand the significance of what he's done. And it's pretty much the same thing with Superman and Batman v Superman, where Superman is continuously trying to save the earth. He's trying to protect mankind, he's trying to inspire them, yet mankind is conflicted about him. There are people who hate him. There are people actively looking to undermine him. And eventually it comes to a headway where the congressional building is exploded and Superman is pinned on Superman. People are talking about hanging him and stuff. Superman's discouraged because he didn't think he thought he could prevent that disaster. He goes away wondering why he's even there, his purpose. He refines his purpose and grounding, and he ends up sacrificing himself for mankind, claiming ownership for the world, to build on Man of Steel, and sacrificing himself for mankind. And that's what caused mankind to come around. Pretty much the story that happened with Yondu is a build-off of the story what happened with Superman in 2016. Yondu in 2017 and Guardians of the Galaxy builds off of the Superman story. And we see it in a number of gravitas. When we talk about sacrifice, we look at Gladiator And we see that too, and we see the whole. In other words, a character must have some sort of history. They must have some sort of philosophy that they're holding fast to, and this is what they sacrificed themselves for. Like Jonathan Kent, he sacrificed himself because he believed very strongly that Clark shouldn't be revealed to the world at the point in time, and his identity needed to be kept a secret. Those are what we call real sacrifices. They have substantial bearing and weight to them. And so when the sacrifice happens, say what you may about the movie, there's gravity and weight to it. We can see it in a number of the movies. We saw the sacrifice in the movie Star Wars The Last Jedi, where Luke Skywalker actually sacrifices himself eventually at the end of the movie for the cause. He's willing to put down his life now for that cause. He was hesitant before, and then the character grew throughout the movie to come to the point where he's willing to go for a higher cause, something bigger than himself. And so I found that none of these characters here, other than don't let Thanos get these stones, they really don't have any philosophy or any growth or character development that leads to their sacrifices meaning something. And that's what I'm talking about. And so that's why I said they're empty sacrifices. Similarly, in this movie, I believe the drama was empty drama. There's a lot of overacting by the actors because they have to counter it with humor. And the humor sort of diffuses those dramatical moments which really didn't have any, again, no substance behind them. What I mean by this is, yes, Thanos is coming. But you have to have something more. You have to have something more than just jokes in between the characters with Iron Man and Spider-Man. For Spider-Man's death to mean something. Him saying, I don't want to die, really doesn't matter to me. That's like melodramatic overacting. What was the significance of his death? And so, telling me that a whole bunch of these characters died is cool, but it really doesn't... I have no feelings about it. And so throughout this movie, where Gladiator made me cry, where Wonder Woman made me cry, where in a certain point in Black Panther it made me cry, it made me feel something, this movie made me feel nothing. And I'm explaining to you exactly where I'm coming from. I have no feelings. In fact, at one point I wanted to laugh that the person was dying because of the overacting. Because these characters, Marvel has never crystallized what each of these characters represent. And then in this particular movie, it's not just Thanos coming for you. It's got to have something more. It has to have meaning. And what they did was they juxtaposed relationships. They forced relationships with Scarlet Witch and Vision. And then they had ridiculous reasons for Vision not wanting to pull out the Mind Stone from Vision. And similarly, we have these relationships between Bruce Banner and Black Widow. Black Widow is, of course, vaporized into ashes. But at the end of the day, there's nothing. Bruce doesn't even witness her go into ashes. You know what I mean? And it's just these silly sort of moments. We had something sort of with Scarlet Witch and Vision, and then Thanos rips out Vision's Mind Stone from him, and his whole head comes off. But again, it's violent, but it's still, I don't give a damn, because Vision's a machine. Yes, he's a sentient being, but he's a machine. So they can always fix him back. And it's these kinds of things that you have to pay attention to. And Groot disappears, and I don't really give a damn. It's like, okay. So you removed Groot. So, whereas people have attachments to these characters because they've seen them in the multiple movies, there's no gravitas, there's no significance to the characters. And what Marvel has done is they've created a whole set of stories where you get attached to the characters so that when they go, you say, oh, we missed them, oh my, this character's gone. But really, there's no weight or significance to it because all of those stories we saw the characters in, we never knew their philosophy, so there was no connecting theme throughout all the movies that we saw the characters in. So it doesn't really mean something thematically and otherwise. It doesn't have any depth or meaning. When you look at Gladiator, there's depth and meaning in that one film because you're going with this character on this journey, yes, but in the meantime, there are philosophies and teachings that the character is experiencing, and the character itself is growing and understanding different things. In a journey, a hero's journey, you have to have growth. None of these characters have growth. Thanos and all doesn't have growth. Thanos is acquiring the stones and stuff, but he's not growing. He has a fixed philosophy. And you have to have these characters challenged. Their philosophies must be challenged. That's what makes Black Panther so awesome. Because there's this philosophy of tradition, and then T'Challa, he starts to challenge it because he's influenced by his ex-girlfriend, and he starts to challenge that, and he starts to grow. That's what makes Black Panther great. What makes Captain America, the first Avenger, great is that he's growing as the movie goes along. Even Iron Man, the first Iron Man film, he's growing. He's not the same person you started the film with. And that's the thing. It's not about appearance and looks and tools and equipment. It's about the characters. That's what drives the movie. And the plot. And since this movie has basically no plot, then it's the characters to drive the story. But Marvel is the MCU was counting on you knowing the characters, and so they can just get excused of doing whatever they want to do with them, which was basically nothing with them. Like a Seinfeld moment. A film pretty much about nothing. And so that's what makes this movie hollow, and that's why it won't stand the test of time, like Star Wars The Last Jedi and Justice League and Wonder Woman and Black Panther. It won't stand the test of time because it's empty. It's poof. It's got nothing. A bunch of spoilers. And since I saw the plot, it didn't impress me. So that's just my long, short version of Avengers Infinity War. There's so much more I could say, but I'm not going to say any more about it. You guys know there's a lot of contradictions in it. You know, you look at Doctor Strange saying Thanos must by all means never get the Time Stone. Then he surrenders the Time Stone to Thanos. I'm just saying. All right? And there's just a bunch of other things I can talk about that are just very inconsistent with the characters. I think how Marvel treats certain characters is just very poor, like I said before. Some other points I want to mention are the fact that this story, while it has a paper-thin plot, and we have these very generic worlds that look the same, and we have this cheap cinematography that Marvel is known for, and the costume designs are basically very, very, very similar. Even so, I would say this, that I know the Russo brothers are not doing a good job with these movies. I still think that the MCU has the potential to cross over with the DCEU. They need to do a lot better in their movies, though. Their standard has dropped tremendously. The only saving grace here is Black Panther, and Black Panther wasn't a film with a lot of jokes in it, and I'm very happy about that. But at the end of the day, it's a spit in the face to people and cinema when you continue to laud these films, which are not films. They're not cinematic films. Why are you calling it the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Why did you do that? You know? And if people are calling that the standard in which comic book movies should be, then you're ruining the comic book industry, movie industry, quite frankly. Because not only are you moving away from the comic books with the characters, but now you're poking fun at them. You're mocking them. And you're saying, look, we don't care anything about comic books. We'll mock the comic books. And if you continue to endorse that, that is where I have a problem. And then in the face of all this criticism for Justice League and for Star Wars, and Star Wars Episode 8, which was The Last Jedi, after all that criticism, to see people now hypocritically give this movie a pass, it shows that people really are, they spit in the face of substance, and they absorb garbage. That's what I think. And blockbuster movies, by and large, are generally hollow movies. They're generally commercialized movies. So it's very refreshing to see Black Panther, because that's a movie that had substance in it. Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Batman v Superman, these are movies with substance in them. And Justice League now. These are all movies that actually tell you something. It's not just a blockbuster. And that's the thing that is failing. Even Logan doesn't have anything much in it. Deadpool has nothing in it. And the point being, if we want better communities, if we want a better world, We have to put more substance in our movies. And that's absent in Avengers. It's filled in Gladiator. It's filled in movies like Rise for the Planet of the Apes and the Planet of the Apes saga. It's filled in movies even like Twilight. Twilight actually has virtue and it actually has substance in it. But this movie has nothing. Nothing. It's for some people a popcorn ride and that's it. And some people are cool with that. But when you bash other movies and then you say this is going to be the bar and you give me a popcorn flick, an okie dokie popcorn flick, a subpar performance, worse than Winter Soldier, worse than Civil War. What do you expect me to say? Applaud that? I'm not going to do that. Other people can do that. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to play political games. Leave your comments in the comment section below. I hope you guys have a good day. That's it for me, Avengers Infinity War. I'm not saying any more on this topic. You guys have a great one.